right, so I'm waiting for everyone now to look at me. Everybody has a partner who you are giving feedback to using the rubric. So we know how this works. Remember, you go in, you present your claim and evidence why you feel your claim is justified, the government was justified or wasn't justified. You may tap in or out. I will be taking notes as well to give you feedback on your strengths as well as your grows. Any questions during the fishbowl debate? Remember, it doesn't matter what you have to say unless you could
back it up with evidence.
Very good. Okay, someone remembers. All right, so I will let you choose. These 3 chairs are available for anybody on this side. These 3 chairs are available for anybody on this side. All right, go ahead and fill them and give me 1 second to just get my pen and rubric.
Oh, shit. So it's about to go down. Okay. Ow. We got a bunch of hackers in.
She's got me.
Dead. Yeah.
Do you need them to move? They can put out more or you got it? Okay. All right, hold on. Let me just take a seat too somewhere. Preston, I'm taking your seat. All right, go ahead.
The government is justified in violating people's rights, because if you were to read books and if you would start to question society, that would lead to an uprising, and uprisings mean bad things for the government. And if you have bad things for the government, they need to strike fear into other people's hearts, or just to make them fear the government, because they don't want people to question society.
Well, obviously they're not justified. Well, he was not justified in doing that, because if you read books, you take in knowledge, and the people of China, if they take in knowledge, the government should be letting them read books, because they know what's happening in the country, and they will be knowledge on everything, and they won't be worried.
And they know their history.
These books aren't what's happening in the present and when they were alive. It was in the past. And they are justified because in the text, anyone who uses history to criticize the present. In the books, it shows history of them. And so if they use that to criticize the present, criticize the government, that might lead to fights, death, and destruction.
And that's danger to the people.
Why would it lead to fights?
Well, because when people criticize the government, they start to question, well, is this government really that great? And then they may start to form groups, and they get angry and they lash back at the government.
Also, according to this chart, it says Jing Hong Guy's key achievements, which he did a building of new canals, which was very big, setting up a strong government which would control 36 local areas, including their own army and Burundi, making significant progress on building the Great Wall, ordering that carts be built with the same wheel width, and introducing common currency, common weights, measurements, and common language based on the same 3,000 characters.
Without taxing the people, he would never have been able to do all those wonderful things for the nation.
Well, speaking of the Great Wall, I get that he saved millions, but still, those thousands of people that he killed, they might be like, imagine your father or whatever uncle going to work and picturing that they might not come back.
Imagine if the Great Wall wasn't there, a whole army coming and slaughtering every one of your friends, all of your family, and even yourself.
Well, even though the wall did kill thousands going to war, not going to war, even though it did kill thousands, working on it did save many people. But, yeah, so it was negative impact because the people, oh wait, I'm confused.
Remember, stay on your claim, don't support them.
So even though they killed thousands, they saved almost the whole population of China.
Yeah, but it did kill thousands in the making, which was not pleasant.
But thousands, at least to the whole country of China.
Well, 1,000 is a lot of people. By a lot, it's a lot. Like 1,000 people.
And
Millions of people are
I know,
Yeah.
but the wall wasn't the only thing that could have protected them.
Yeah.
It wasn't the only thing that could protect them from war or being killed.
Well, if you look at the great map, without the wall, there is a lot more room for invaders to come in.
But they still have military, and they still have many things
They
that they
may
can
still
defend.
have military, but he'll still kill.
They didn't have high-tech machines that we kind of have now. Not high-tech, but they didn't have the great machines that we have now to kind of power through a town.
And
You know?
the impact of the Great Wall, the Great Wall wasn't that they could have just said the same as what it couldn't have. Maybe what if they didn't have it? It wouldn't have a difference of it. Like if they just say, did they have a war in China ever since the Great Wall was up?
The Great Wall prevented wars from happening because, with what you said, that yes, the enemies didn't have all that high-tech missiles, but neither did China. If they brought up a big army, they could still penetrate.
Yeah, they could hold off
But
even
still,
without the
their
Great
army
Wall.
is they're guarding already, around. So they're on the towers and stuff.
Well, the women, the woman there, maybe they may be wondering what happened to their husbands. What if because they could fall from big heights and then they just pretty much die. So they can go with they're gonna be worrying about and their children are probably gonna be scared because their fathers are not there. Usually those fathers are those who protect them.
So the Great Wall is keeping the military from, because they don't need that much military then if the Great Wall is protecting them.
But yeah. Well, with the military, it's kind of even more protected. The wall, they could kind of maybe get through if they have more than China, weapons and stuff like that. They could get through maybe, but with the military, with it growing and growing and being bigger, it would kind of be more of a challenge to get through.
Obviously, with the Great Wall of China, it did help them. But if they didn't have the Great Wall of China, it wouldn't. Maybe they could have got attacked, but they still would have had the same, they still would have had China, they still would have had the same buildings, the same lifestyle. But if they
Wait, I have a connection for you guys. Let's say you were one of those kids that stayed in the house, and your father died, and he was forced to build on a Great Wall, and then he pretty much just died. How would you how you guys feel if your father died?
Let's say if our father died, imagine the population now in China, which is 1.3 billion people. Imagine all of those people and all the generations to come that worked on the Great Wall of China and died. Imagine all those generations that would be alive today and how big that population would be.
Yeah, but imagine, do you know how when thousands of people died at building the wall? What if those were someone's father or brother or someone's relatives? But so you're basically killing someone. The government was killing people.
It's also bringing it back. Is it for the good of the nation or just the free of 1,000 people?
Well,
would you rather protect your nation? Because the United States has the military. they choose if they want to go into the military or not. Well, if they were forced in China, but they wanted to do this in the United States because they want to fight for their country. They didn't know, but that wall that they built was helping fighting against the intruders for their country.
And
Yeah, but as I was saying before, what if, do you know how it killed people? Yeah, well, if it killed the people, if just say you were the person that had to build the wall, but you really didn't want to, why couldn't you have a choice, or like, you couldn't have an agreement to do that? You were just forced to go in and have to do that.
It's to save the rest of the country.
But I know that it did save a lot of people, but still, it made like the government like forced them. They should have had an agreement, like, yeah, I'll build it, but the government just forced it. You have to build it, or.
Well, that was like back then, like older times, and killing was like, you know, like a normal thing. Before, like now, killing is wrong, but before it was just a normal thing.
well, and if you look at the map, you can clearly see that there's a ton of room for invaders to come in on the sides and in the back.
Yeah, but there's all the mountains and the waterways. It's hard
On
to
the
get
left
through.
side, there's the mountains. On the right side, there's the big ocean. And right there where all the orange is a big desert, and there's all the rivers.
So you're go.
Well, like while you're back on to the Great Wall real quick, like if you die, but while building the Great Wall, they don't like try to find the person who died and dig you up. They just leave you there.
Well, like you said, how the northwest of China was covered. Well, it doesn't have anything there. Those probably were countries that were allied or were with China. So their invaders, well, they wouldn't technically invade anything because that probably could have been for immigrants to China or out of China.
Well, let's just say back then the U.S. Army attacked China, and back their Chinese allies did not have a Great Wall of country. So the U.S. invaders can just come in and go in China.
But there were no U.S. invaders back then. There were no U.S. invaders.
I'm just saying if there were.
And why would the U.S. want to invade China?
That's not evidence.
Okay.
Bring this to the present. The one-child policy, I believe the government is justified. In the packet, it says that in 1949 to 1976, the population grew from 540 million to 940 million. And then in 1978, they made the one-child policy. Then looking at the graph, it only even goes to 2000. China's population is already above 1.2 billion. So imagine if the policy wasn't there, then it might even be to 1.5 billion.
Maybe even to
Well,
those two.
if those children who were by themselves, according to the interview, if the parents spoils them as much as they do, the child might think that they can get whatever they want when they want, and they're like the king or queen, and that leads to poverty because, well, not poverty, but that leads to less money because they are wanting all this stuff and their parents are getting it for them.
Well, that has to do with the parents being a bad parent spoiling them. It doesn't have to do anything with the government.
It's the parents' choice what they could do to their child.
So we're talking about the one-child policy now?
Yeah.
Well, the one-child policy
They, well, according to the one-child policy, even though the population is really big there, with the one-child policy, it'll help. But what would that do? That would make the parents kind of just have one child and kind of just spoil them, and they won't. The children, the one child, will kind of feel just not like have another sibling to hang out with or talk to, and just kind of just feel, lonely. And even though with the growing population, it is unfair that they can't have another child.
Again, according to the interview, the child will feel uncomfortable because they feel like their parents are watching them at all times because their parents are giving them so much attention.
Well, also, if they didn't have the one-child policy, whenever the child grew up, they would need to get more space, like land for houses and having more markets for food.
Well, even if this is supposed to count help with how many people there are in China, but it doesn't really, because if they have another child and it was actually a girl, they're mostly hidden or abandoned, which is the population is still growing. It's just they're just abandoned. They don't have anyone.
Well, you can still pay a fine or have. So it's not like you can only have one child.
But the fine depends on the family's income, and the income could not be that much, and the family could lose most of their money.
If you cannot pay that fine, you have to. The child gets no ID card. If you don't get an ID card, you're not able to have education, and you're not able to have. You can't go travel places. You can't get your driver's license. You can't do anything. You're basically left alone, and you're not acknowledged by any services or anything. Like if you get sick, you're gone. You can't go to the hospital and check in and have somebody help you. You're just left alone. If your family can help you, good. But also,
if you have a good job, maybe as a parent, maybe being, say, working at a hospital, you could take care of them, you could do what they need, and you could still have that privilege of having a child or paying the fine and still having them.
Well, also what Preston said about if you don't have an ID card, you can't have education. If they didn't have the one-child policy, they'd have to spend a lot of their tax money on the education because they would need to have more land for education because of all the kids coming in to go to school.
Also, if you think about it, so you have to have money in order to have.
Exactly. So with China, some people there have really good jobs. They could have another child.
Right.
They would go on. But they should be allowed. They should be allowed to have more because of even though the growing population, they should because of their longer kids.
Also, according to CNN, the one-child policy prevented 400 million births, which is more. It's about a population of the United States right now.
Also, the population growth has been, it's been explosive from 1949 to 1976. But the consequences should be worse because they're letting these guys get away with it, and that every child is getting born, and if they can't pay that fine, how are they going to be able to? Because you're still having that child. I think the child should get moved away because that is a +1 for China's population.
But it's not fair that you have to pay a fine for your own child, and it says in the packet too that it's a slap on the wrist for.
Well, if they know that you're not supposed to have another child, so.
Well, in the one-child policy packet, it said that if you have twins, you're allowed to keep the 2 children without a penalty.
It also brings it back, is it for the good of a few people, or if it's for the good of the nation? So.
And if they're allowed to have more children, China's population has been too much, and they're not. You can't control it.
But if they have to pay a fine for one child and they have to pay for school too, why don't they, like, why do they have to pay a fine?
And if they have twins, they don't have to pay, but that may not be like fair for the other people. Like,
You might not have enough money to pay for your child.
well, there are ways around it. Like you could pay the fines or like connections. Like had like one of your family members works in the government. You could say you have twins, even though they could be years apart. Or you could like go to another country, have your children, and then come back because they want to be a Chinese citizen.
Last topic that has not been discussed yet is censorship. The Big Brother article. Those of you who have not had a chance to come in and speak, make sure you come in.
In the article, the Big Brother is still watching internet censorship is up, and it says that the Great Firewall is what it's shutting down the internet chatter, and it's preventing people to see what's happening around the world, and it's violating people's rights because they have the right to see what's happening around the world, and they might go there. Well, one thing that they were protecting people from seeing was it states in paragraph 4 that censors block related search terms to prevent the public from locating news on prominent human rights activist Chen, who caused a diplomatic storm when he escaped house arrest to seek refuge in the U.S. Embassy building in Beijing. They didn't want like everyone to escape and try to find like their human rights because then people would start to question and they wouldn't like want to live in China anymore and they would like escape. But people have the rights to see what's happening around the world and what they want, like what's happening around the world and what's happening with what is he doing. Well, they would start to question and they would start to leave China, and the government doesn't want them to leave. They're just trying to do it for their safety.
And then the population would decrease.
Also in paragraph 7, it said that social media was a key role in the uprising in Egypt and Tunisia, and they will fear of a similar revolution.
By shutting down the internet, they're preventing people from seeing what they want to see and the information that they should have the right to see just because the government views it as sensitive.
Well, censoring parts of the internet means that, well, obviously they should censor some things because of reasons, but they shouldn't censor like CNN or news reports because what if CNN said that there's a giant tsunami coming? China wouldn't know about it, and then the whole population is wiped out.
Because they're not censoring that. They're censoring the activists of what the people are talking about. Because they're trying to get the information out for the society. Because the censorship is just for things that they don't want to see. But if there's a tsunami coming, why would they want those people to die? And how would a tsunami come and hit China?
Like Preston said, they don't censor everything. And plus, there are probably other channels other TV channels and shows that they approve of that would put a big tsunami or hurricane as a headline.
They censor CNN only for the things that they're talking about in China, like Chen.
Why?
Because they don't want people to question society. If they question society, they begin an uprising, or they,
Like in ancient China with the burning of the books.
Why would they question that?
Because they don't. Why? What reasons? What do you mean? You said that they censor things for reasons. What reasons?
Well, I'm talking about like censoring things like like history that could affect them.
That was in the past. We're talking about modern China. They're not censoring history books or anything. They're just censoring modern day things, like with the activist. They're censoring that because it's human rights activists. So Shannon might be saying stuff like the Chinese government is
outrageous.
Yeah, like, and that they're censoring all the channels in the internet, and that's bad. And then if everyone looks at that and hears him, they might start to question the government too.
So you're saying if someone was talking about the government in any way, they would censor it?
Well, depending on what type.
Say they're talking like bad about it.
Then they would censor that because they don't want the people to, like I said, they don't want the people to question society. And if they do question society, that leads to an uprising, and that's what they don't want.
The people have the right to know what's going on with where they live.
Yeah. They have the right to know what's going on there. And why they can't know about it?
Why would they have the right?
Because why would they have the right? Because they should know about what's going on in their country.
Why?
They should know that a war is going on or whatever, or something like that.
All right. First of all, with something as big as a war, obviously they're gonna know through either approved channels or word of mouth.
But like what Crystal was saying with the uprising, if it does cause an uprising with them knowing, at least it'll kind of make them closer together about what would be going on, and kind of give Chen an idea of how it affects their daily life, that they can't really do what they want on the internet and search up, or with the censorship of them blocking some of the TV shows that they need to watch or want to watch.
Would you rather live in a place where you're not allowed to look at some things, or live in a place that you're in a war all the time because of something?
Well, it wouldn't be a war all the time. It would just be like
war.
It would just be one big war.
Yeah, it would just be one war that takes up time.
But I don't think they would actually cause a war about just censorship, but it would cause, like Preston said, an uprising, riots, which could make the government seem to realize that what they're doing is not right.
But they would be going against the government.
Yeah. Why would they be going against the government?
Because the government, they're putting the censorship, and if they cause an uprising, against it, they're going against the government.
All right.
Make your last few statements. Anybody else wants to?
Well, yes. They have
Well, censoring the internet stops chaos.
Hold on 1 second, Alina. Go ahead, a little louder, hon.
Well, censoring the internet stops chaos because
What chaos will there be?
because chatter, there's people start questioning stuff, and so, important history, and that would
But it wouldn't be about searching history. It would just be about searching about the country, which they're not allowed to do, which if they want to find out, they can't because of the government.
You know what? America censors things. The NSA censors our phone calls. They censor the time. And if there's any keywords in our phone calls, they actually listen to them.
No, well, not every phone call.
Not every phone.
Not every.
They're keywords.
That's
Yeah, I
censor.
know,
I
but-
think it's a misuse of word. What word are you looking for, Preston?
Violating.
Violating.
What?
Violating.
Well, the track or the surveillance.
Therefore, that means that the government could.
But we're not we're not censoring as much as they are. I mean, we're doing
We're
tracking phone
giving
calls.
newspaper. They don't give newspaper. Like we have articles of the bad things that happen.
We have the right, or anyone has the right to say what they want here, but they don't over there.
And the Chinese government has the right to do what they want to do. And with what you're saying about censoring things like a hurricane or something, where in the text does it say they would censor something as big and horrible as that?
Because they would want those people in China to
They would want to
survive.
know that, yeah.
But
Where in the text does it say that they censor something as big as a war or a hurricane?
or dictator. Dictators get to do whatever they want.
Yeah, I know.
The China is a conflict.
China's becoming a dictatorship because they're not giving freedom.
Because China has the freedom to what they want.
Yeah, I know, but the people don't want that.
A dictatorship is a person who
Dictatorships then, because it's a group of people.
uses force to get up to power and do whatever they want.
One person.
All right,
this,
last
this,
closing
or-
statement from each side, and then I'm going to ask you to stop for a second. Okay, go ahead. If anybody wants to make a last statement, this is it.
Therefore,
Free world.
therefore, the Chinese government could be just.
Okay, so it is justified, you're saying?
Before you wreck yourself.
All right, I'm going to stop you, and I want everyone to face me. You guys did a great job, okay? We're starting to, as the year progresses, you are improving. I mean, if you think back, Jack, face me, please, from the beginning of the year where you did your first fishbowl debate, and it was all, I think, and I really did notice, one of the great things I noticed this time with your fishbowl debate was I didn't hear eyes. And that was great. You really started to go back to the text to make sure that you were referring to it or asking each other, where did you get that piece of evidence and why is that important? And I did notice some of you, we need to work on improving what is that evidence and how is it really supporting your claim. But as I walked around, I am seeing those of it on your notes. Now it's, how do you discuss it? Jack, please stop that. And how do you present it? I heard some great comments and questioning techniques that were used by many of you. Now what you're going to do, this is going to lead right into our writing prompt. Tomorrow, the next class that we meet, you will be writing your ICE response. You will introduce your claim, you will cite evidence from any one of the sources from the text that you have, and you will explain why. Now at this point, if you feel that you want to switch sides, so anybody here that thought the government was never justified, if you want to switch and say the government was justified, you will be allowed to. So now you'll be able to sit back and really think about what you heard, which argument you heard, the opposing views, the counterclaims, and figure out what is your true belief, and then how will you cite it, because you can switch sides at this point in your writing assignment. When you write, you must use the content. You must use specific evidence from the text, and then you must explain it. Okay, so that is what we will be doing tomorrow. What I would like you to do now is that I'd like you to nicely please clean up. Yes, and wait one second. Nicely clean up, organize the tables, and then stay seated, please.